Let's get right into it, and I will be including a link down in the description box so that if you click the link, you will get the first 40 items you list for free, which is a pretty good deal because each listing is 20 cents. When you sign up, you can use either your Google, Apple, or Facebook accounts or create one by email, and then it will guide you through the entire process. It's really simple to open your first shop. You will just set up your preferences. If you are in the US, you will select the country, your language, and how you want to get paid, currency, and then you will go to the all-important naming of your shop. I recommend doing a few searches before you get here because you want to know if anyone's already using a similar name or if it's available. I did do that beforehand and found that Sunny Self-Care was one that would work for my second shop where I'm planning to do a few self-care and therapy related printables. After you pick your name for your shop, it leads you right into creating your first listing. Page Etsy suggests you have 10 listings to open your shop. I would recommend at least one. I think you have to have one to go through this full process. I created a little habit tracker for my shop so that I could have one item listed, and then I went through the process where I selected a photo. You have to have at least one photo for your listing, and then you will move on to the title. You'll want to include keywords that you think people will be searching. You can do a lot of keyword research with tools that are out there. If you're interested, I can do a video on that in the future as well. And having the keywords in your title is really key to being found on Etsy. So I highly recommend you spend some time on your title and then make sure that your thumbnail fits the image that you're trying to portray to the customer so that they know what they're getting when they click through. Basically, the titles are how you get found in searches on Etsy, but those pictures are what makes people click through. So you have to really focus on both your title and your thumbnail so that people are finding you and being engaged enough and intrigued enough by your product to click through and see the full listing. So that's really the most important part, I would say, of your listing when you are working on it. Next, you will be selecting category. You can search what you're creating in the category drop down and then select the category that looks like it's the closest, and then you'll find that it lists out several categories beneath there that people will find you in, and based on your title, people can find you in others just depending on how you describe your product and what you're selling. You can also select occasions and colors. These are optional things, but they can help you be found in more specific searches. So if you're trying to get more long tail, very specific customers, those can be very helpful. And if you're doing something holiday related, that of course is a great option to select so that you're found in holiday searches. Next, you'll select whether your renewal is automatic or manual for your listing. Because I mostly sell digital products, I always select automatic. So that just means when a listing sells, it is automatically renewed, so it stays up in my shop. If you're doing something that is an actual product, you might want to try manual, or if you're trying to see what sells in the beginning, manual is a good option as well. So you will have to renew those listings. Next, you'll select type, which is either physical or digital. It depends on what you're selling. Again, I do a lot of digital downloads, so I select that. And then you'll fill out a description explaining what your item actually is. You will then select a section in your shop, which is optional, but I have found that is very helpful to have your shop broken up into like categories, because people do browse categories and they go through and find similar products that they might want. So I created a new section, as you can see, in my new shop. And then next optional item is tags, but tags are another way that people can find you and something that Etsy doesn't put as much focus on, but are very helpful. So I would definitely recommend using tags. You can also explain what materials you used. If you are doing something that is physical and you're using wood or leather, that is a very helpful section to use. So you're just adding more keywords for the type of product you're using. Moving on to the inventory and pricing section of your listing, you will want to create a price and then a quantity. If you're doing digital, you can use a higher quantity of items. If you're doing something physical, you'll probably only want one, and you'll have to do a manual restock when that happens. You can do personalization. So if that is something you're doing on your listings, if you're letting customers customize them, you would select that there. And then finally, if you're doing digital, you add the actual file so that the customer can download it once they buy it without you having to do anything. I have found recently that Etsy does this to me on listings a lot, that I will click save and continue and scroll back up to try to find where there was an error, and there was no error. So if this happens to you, don't panic. It is just a strange glitch that I keep having. And once you select it the second time, it goes right through. So you can see how that happened to me. So if it does happen to you, it is not a end of the world situation. Just click through again, and there you go. The listing is live in the shop. Like I said, Etsy wants you to start with 10 or more items. I started both of my shops with just one item and added as I can. Because I am a part-time seller, this is how I do it, just adding as I can as I go. Next step is selecting how you will get paid. You have to select your country, and then you get to fill in your details of where you're going to be paid. Obviously, this is private, so I didn't show this information on my setup, but you do just fill in your account information and then a little bit about yourself, your address and all of that, so that they know who they are giving money to, because you will get a 1099 from Etsy, because you will have to pay taxes on your Etsy income. So this is very important. And then next, you are going to set up your billing. This is how you pay your Etsy bill, and that is what you are paying is the listing fee. So you will get 20 cents charged every time you have a listing renew. And then for the actual transactions, when you sell something, they charge a 5% transaction fee, and if you're shipping, they charge on that as well. And then there is also a payment processing fee that is 3% plus 25 cents. So obviously there is a lot of fees associated with Etsy. I do think it is still worth it, because you are still making money and you're reaching a wide audience that you might not otherwise reach when you get started, because Etsy is a marketplace, so there are buyers already on the shop. But ultimately, if you want to make more money, you'll probably have to go off Etsy and use a different program or platform that is not charging as many listing fees. After you've set up your billing for Etsy, they will do the final little things and your shop will be open for business. So you will see that it comes up like this. So there are still some things you'll want to do to get your shop kind of up and running and looking good. You'll want to go in and edit the shop so that you are more attractive. You can add announcements. You can add a little bit of a backstory about your channel. You can add a promo video. You can add some photos with captions kind of sharing your story about why you're selling on Etsy, or you can add a story headline and kind of entice people into buying one of your products and part of your story. It's really helpful if you have a strong brand, or if you have a strong brand story. That can be really, really useful to add here. I highly recommend you thinking of your Etsy shop as a brand and treating it as such. You can do a random shop with random items, but thinking of it as a brand with a cohesive theme and a singular focus on a type of product tends to do better, because people remember you and they remember what you sell and what you're known for. So I highly recommend, if you are starting an Etsy shop, that you don't go all over the place and you keep the story and the products very tight and you keep them very cohesive and on brand for yourself. For example, that's why I'm starting a second shop, because self-care and therapy printables don't fit into my first shop, which is very much focused around personal finance topics and tools. So that is something that is a different story, and that is why they are going to be separate shops. So I think keeping things with a strict theme is very helpful on Etsy, and buyers will start to remember you and come back to you. So I also recommend that you add at least a photo of your shop icon. I did not have a real strong idea for my shop when I started, when I did this setup, so I will be changing it, but I just went and found a free to use stock photo and use that to do my setup. You can go to pexels.com or another site that lets you use photos with no attribution, but this is where you'd normally use your logo for your shop. So it's going to be something that you're known for, and as you're working on your brand, you want that to be very specific, that is recognizable, and people will notice that's your shop and they'll click through and want to come back to you. So you'll also want to do your shop owner profile, and you can put as little or as much information there as you want, but they do highly recommend doing a photo so people know that at least your shop is from a real person and you're not some company, since Etsy is really about small makers and it's supposed to be about things that people have made to sell, that is highly recommended. That is really all you need for the basic getting going. You can go through and look through all of the things in your shop manager section. There will be sometimes a item or two down here under your shop's checklist that they're recommending that you do, or things that can improve your shop. I recommend that every time you log in, you look there and see what is listed, because there have been some really helpful tips. But just getting started, there's nothing there for my new shop, so I don't need to do that. You can go in and check out your listings and improve them. You can star them so they show up as your favorites in the shop. You can also see what they look like when you go through and see them as a customer would. You can check out the stats for your listing, which I highly recommend because you'll get a lot of information about how people are finding you. That will give you a lot of good information about how to promote your shop and where to promote your shop and what is actually working. So I highly recommend that you spend some time getting to know these different sections in the shop manager. And then, of course, when you are doing orders, you'll have this place in your shop called Orders and Listings, and it will show you both what you have to fulfill and what you have completed. If you're doing digital downloads, it pretty much only shows ever as completed because they are done as soon as someone pays for them, and they are nothing you have to do for follow-up, which is why I personally love digital downloads. But if you're doing stickers or something that is a physical product, you'll have a list of orders to fulfill. Then, of course, you can view more stats about your shop and how people are finding you and how you are driving traffic, which is very, very important. And I will be doing videos in the future about how to increase traffic to your Etsy shop and how to get your listings shown. But when you're just getting started, you'll want to familiarize yourself with the different areas of the shop manager and what you can learn from all of that information. So to get started, you really only need one listing and the basics of your shop.